Welcome to the Stop Over Drinking and Start Living podcast, where high-achieving, goal-oriented rebel women come to learn how to live a vibrant and fulfilling life without requiring alcohol to get through it. No labels, no judgments, no saying you'll never drink again. Just real proven methods to help you stop rebelling against yourself with alcohol so you can drink less and do more. I'm your host, Angela Mascenik. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 390. You don't need to know how, you just need to decide. Hola, hola, hola. That's hi in Portuguese. Bom dia. That's good morning. I have made the move. I am 30 hours in since moving my family and the pets and every final little teeny tiny thing that we could cram into our suitcases to Lisbon, Portugal. Wow. So I am sitting here in the Magic House. I've decided to have my home office in the Magic House because it's magical, of course, and there's air conditioning in every room. And it's upwards of 90-something degrees here. Anyway, it's a serenity place where I can not be interrupted. Really, for the first time since I started my business. There's always interruptions at my house. People coming in and out, unexpectedly opening garage doors and making the dogs bark, kids home from school, husband decides to work home, blah, 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 blah. So my office is at the Magic House, and I cannot tell you how good that makes me feel. And this morning I had my first cup of coffee, fully moved here. And I'm looking around this space that I built into a retreat center, and I just keep thinking, like, I did this. This is real. And I've already hosted 2 retreats here, so I know it's real, but there was always like, and we're moving, and we'll be coming in June, and like it was always in the future. And I'm just really sort of processing how big this is with you all today. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. And I didn't want to let this morning pass without recording something or writing something. So I sent an email out earlier with sort of the same message. What am I feeling right now? What am I thinking about? And it has everything to do with the work that I help you do and the patterns and experiences and obstacles and challenges and wins that I went through with building this retreat center and moving my family of 5 and 2 pets to Portugal. And I didn't do that. We did that. My family did that. My husband did so much of the paperwork. I have to really give him kudos where kudos is due. It was a team effort for sure, but that guy is a project manager by trade and an Excel guru, and he loves paperwork, and I don't. I'm the creative. I'm the visionary. I'm the one that decided and had the dream of moving here, and then he executed all of that legal paperwork stuff with my help, of course. Lots of research, lots of studying. But it was an actual team effort. Even the kids, like they went through their own feelings, and they had to get themselves on board to see themselves here and help set up their rooms and help unload boxes and pack and move. And, I couldn't have done it without them either. So there's a lot to this story. I'm not going to tell you everything right now, but it'll be revealed as I can. But I want you to maybe think about going for a walk or grabbing a cup of coffee, because I want to talk to you about what it takes to do a huge transformation. My family is having a transformation right now. We're literally moving countries. We are immigrants in a foreign country. And that means a whole lifestyle shift, right? That means completely starting over and learning a new language and understanding different systems and how to do things and all of it. Just as changing your relationship with alcohol, or perhaps leaving alcohol in your past, requires a complete transformation of yourself as well. And maybe looking at having different relationships and new relationships and mourning the loss of the relationship that you had with it and everything that it's attached to. So getting back to sort of my story today, 18 months ago-ish, I had an idea. I wanted to move my family to Portugal. And I had actually never been here before, but I had done tons of research about living here, and I wanted to give my family a harder opportunity. I didn't want to just go to another English speaking place, maybe Ireland or England or something like that, where English was the predominant language. I wanted it to actually be hard. And I know that's kind of strange to wrap your head around, but I knew that the transition and the move would be epically hard. And I wanted all of those challenges I wanted it to be worth it in the end, right? For me, like moving to another English speaking country, I could just move somewhere in the United States. And I wanted something, I wanted a different culture. I wanted to experience something completely different. So that's why one of the reasons I chose Portugal. And even my husband was like, but the English, and I'm like, we'll learn. We live in Lisbon, so a lot of the younger generation speak English and we can navigate pretty well. And it's a fun challenge to learn a different language. And my kids are already bilingual in Spanish, and their brains are primed to learn a third language. And a lot of the schools here, public schools, help foreign students with language. Anyway, so Portugal it was. The weather is awesome. It reminds us a lot of California. The cost of living is a lot cheaper than the United States, not just rent and things, but healthcare and education and just food and everything. So there are a lot more reasons to that, and I won't get into that. But regardless, moving here and transforming my life here is very similar to what I experience and what you might experience in transforming yourself through changing your relationship with alcohol. And again, I said it took about 18 months, and that is ish. It was I decided in February of 2025. We came and visited Portugal for the first time in April 2025. We rented an apartment that week. We were here for 1 week only. We rented an apartment. We expected to move here in June of 2025, so 3 months. Well, fast forward to a whole another year later than what we originally thought. So it took about 18 months in total. So the journey, same thing with drinking, can be a lot harder than you originally thought. And I want to normalize that because I think a lot of my clients experience that. You know, I have programs that run 3 months, 6 months, and ongoing. And they come in and they want to get this figured out as fast as possible. Just like I wanted to just get this move over as fast as possible. I wanted the kids to be here before they started another year of school. And like at that time, that was the perfect time to do it because 2 of the kids were transitioning into a new like high school or middle school. So it would have been better to move them then instead of like in the middle of them being in middle school or high school. I wanted it to be a lot faster. I wanted it to be a lot less expensive. I wanted it to be easier. And I think a lot of you feel that same way about changing your relationship with alcohol. You want it to be easier, and that's okay. It's normal. We're programmed to want to take the road of least resistance, okay? We want things to be easy and as pain-free as possible. That's just how we're programmed. Remember, avoid pain, seek pleasure, save energy. That's the primitive triad, the motivational triad. That's our programming. And as I went through this process with my move, it was harder than I expected. It was way more expensive than I thought. I mean, so much more. We ended up paying rent in 2 places for a year. We had sold our house in Chapel Hill, thinking that we were moving in June of 2025. And then that fell through because we couldn't get our visas. And so I had to rent another apartment while paying for rent in Portugal. Okay, so like when I think about more expensive, that wasn't just the only thing. We had to pay for utilities and furnish the apartment in Lisbon and all the travel back and forth and okay, all the paperwork. Like it just is a never ending list. It ended up taking as long as it took. And now looking back at it, I'm so glad it took that long because I wouldn't be sitting in the magic house. I would not have been coming back and forth as much as I was to my apartment in Lisbon, our family apartment from Chapel Hill. And I used our apartment in Lisbon as a retreat for my colleague and I, Sarah, to come retreat and plan for 2026. We wanted to work on our businesses and have spaciousness, just like everything I do and host on retreats. We wanted to do that for ourselves and get away from our everyday life so we could have the spaciousness and not have to worry about all that domestic stuff, to let our brains expand and be creative. Had it worked out the way that I thought it was going to, that wouldn't have happened. Sarah wouldn't have come to my house and spent a week. I wouldn't have wanted to retreat with my whole family enmeshed in that situation, especially in that timing when the kids would have just started school. So I don't know if the Magic House would have existed. I came up with a Magic House idea on that retreat. Okay, so now looking back, I'm so glad it took as long as it did. And I got to ease this transition for my kids better. They got to come over a few times. We got to set up our house. We got to set up all of our utilities. We understood more of the culture. I got to know the people here. I met so many friends building the Magic House. I don't regret it at all. And I'm glad it happened the way it did. It was also more painful than I expected. So not only was it more expensive, it was more emotionally challenging. Like, it was the hardest thing I think I've ever done emotionally. Telling my kids that we were moving, heartbreaking, crying, everybody just revolting against us. The devastation of when we found out we weren't going to move and we had packed our house, sold our house, and we're ready to go in 2 weeks, and then we found out we couldn't go. I mean, there's just so much with visas and appointments and all the things. Emotionally, too, the back and forth that I did. So I did almost every month after I found this flat and was working on the Magic House. So that was in October of 2025. And we had been there. I was in there in September. I was there in August. So yeah, I was here every month since we decided to move. I would get attached to being in Lisbon. I found out I had a cousin here. I was starting to make friends. I started getting into things that I love to do, my yoga studio down the street and the lifestyle. And then I would go back to America, and then I would get attached to being there again, and then I would go back to Lisbon. So like emotionally, it was very challenging. And even more challenging, and I might cry, and that's okay, is because I'm still processing this, is saying goodbye permanently. You know, I know I'll see my friends again, but saying goodbye to my friends and community in Chapel Hill. I remember thinking on the last day that I was hanging out with my friend Martha. I actually spent the night at her house. And she was the last friend that I saw before we flew away the next day. And I did not want to get up off her couch. I spent the night at her house. I woke up in the morning. I was just like journaling and writing emails, and just, she was doing a little bit of work. And I just remember thinking, when I get off this couch, it's over. And I knew that's the only way I can describe it, was like going to a funeral. Like, I know what's ahead, and this is over. Like, me being able to just pop over and spend the night at her house, or going for a walk with her, or any of my other friends there, is deeply, deeply sad, and I'm grieving that. And it's very hard. It doesn't mean that I regret this decision or I second guess this decision at all. Like, I am so happy with this decision. And there are deep emotions associated with transforming your life. And the more comfortable you can get with your feelings and without judgment, and let them just be what they are, the bigger your life will be. And I couldn't have done any of this. This wouldn't have been an idea in my mind. Actually, it was an idea about moving abroad. You know, my husband and I had been thinking about this for about 15 years. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off emotionally. I would have quit for sure because of how difficult it was emotionally. But because of the compounding effect of learning how to be with myself, the deep work I've done with myself, allowing and processing my feelings without reacting to them over these past 8 years since I quit drinking and done a lot of work on myself, that's what made it possible. Because the emotions, it wasn't logistics, it wasn't paperwork, it wasn't the physical stuff of it and all the tasks, it was the emotional part that was the most challenging. And that is the same thing when you change your drinking. The emotional part of this will always be the most challenging. because people don't know how to feel their feelings. They don't know how to sit with their discomfort without reacting to it. All of that to say, it's a journey. And if I think about the journey to change your relationship with alcohol or doing something like I did, moving my family to a foreign country, what I wrote in the email this morning is it looks like a toddler scribbling on a piece of paper. It's messy and chaotic, and it's up and down and backwards and forwards, but there's a slight upward curve towards the top right. And that's what the journey to stopping over drinking looks like. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs and back pedals and forward pedals and 2 steps forward and 1 step back and vice versa and everything in between. Okay? And I want you to learn how to be on that journey a little bit better by listening to this podcast today. But before that, I want to think about something, and I wrote this in the email as well. And that was, if I had known ahead of time everything that I would have had to do, that I would be delayed by over a year, that it would cost me more than twice as much as we originally thought, the difficult emotions, all of it, would I do it? And the answer is yes, 100% without a doubt. Because our decision was made. And we knew once we started that process that we wanted to see it through because of how hard it is. So we didn't have to remake that decision over and over again. We decided, just like we decided to get married, we don't have to think about getting married again. That decision was already made. So once that decision was made, everything else that we face became a problem to solve rather than a reason to stop. And I want you to listen to this again. Once your decision is made, everything else becomes a problem to solve rather than a reason to stop. And this is where people get hung up on changing their drinking. They make a drink plan. They say they're not going to drink. They're going to do a dry July. They're going to go whatever, right? They're not going to drink today. They've made that decision. But what happens is they get caught up in their feelings. They get caught up in the story that they're telling themselves when it gets difficult, and then they make it a reason to stop instead of a problem to solve. And they go back on that decision that was made. And so your scribbly line might look even worse than mine did with this move. And you may just be like spinning and spinning and spinning. Like imagine that scribbly graph, and you're just spinning around and around and around. Like your internet is on dial-up. You see that little spinning circle? That's what happens if you are not following through on that decision and you use your feelings and your thoughts as reasons to stop. So the decision is the thing. Deciding that you want to change your relationship with alcohol. Okay? And whatever that looks like for you, if that's just this one day, if that's for the week, if that's for the year. You guys want it badly, and sometimes you spend months, sometimes years trying to figure out how to do that before you actually commit to doing it. You love to listen to podcasts, you love to read books, you love to analyze, you love to think about it. But that's different than committing to it. You guys want to know if it's going to work before you actually try it. You want to understand the science of it. You want to learn all this stuff. You want to feel ready before you start. You want the fear to go away before you take that leap. You want everybody to make your life easier. You want things to settle down. You want less distractions. I totally understand that. It feels logical. Why would you want to commit to something before you knew how it's going to go? But we actually do this a lot already. You've already done this a lot in your life. Look at buying a home, going to college, starting a career, anything, training for a half marathon, starting a workout program. You believe that it's going to work out, and then you go figure it out, right? Especially like the buying of the house situation is a perfect analogy because that process doesn't go without obstacles, right? There's always something that comes up and goes wrong in selling or buying a home, right? And we don't know what that looks like, but we know what our commitment is. We know that in the end, you're going to have that house or you're going to sell that house. You can't know all the obstacles in between. You just know what the outcome is that you want. And this is what I'm talking about. And this is what I'm trying to make a parallel for you to understand it better with my move and all the obstacles I had to face to changing your relationship with alcohol. It's logical, it's logical to want to know the steps. It's logical to want to be sure that this is going to work because that feels safe, right? We want to know, like, what's it going to look like? What's the path? What's the map, right? I don't want to commit to something before I know, right, what this is going to be like. The plan doesn't come before the decision, though, okay? Knowing the action items doesn't come from making that. The plan comes from the knowing that you will do it. You don't need to know how. You just need to decide that it will happen. So when I decided to move to Portugal, I didn't have a plan. We didn't know what we were doing. We started researching and learning and then applying as we were going, as every obstacle came up. For example, we were set to fly with our pets on Monday. Today is Wednesday, okay? On Monday. We had to go through this process to get FDA certified documents for our pets and all this stuff. And my husband was in charge of that. I asked him if he understood what needed to happen at the airport in Lisbon when we landed. And he's like, oh, we got all the paperwork, we're good to go. I go, I know, but there's another step that happens. Like, I think there's a veterinarian at the airport or something, and we should probably look into that. Like, we had figured it out, or he had figured it out all the way to get the pets on the plane. But he didn't go, like, what happens when we land and we're in the foreign country. So I'm like, we were at our layover. We had left Raleigh. We had a layover at JFK. We had a 4-hour layover. An hour before our plane took off, he decides that he probably should go research that. And I'm like, I have just learned so much through this process to just hand it over to the universe and just believe that everything's going to work out, because I would not be functioning if I got stressed about everything. So it's time to go to our gate now. I'm like, we should probably go. And he's like, whew, I got it all figured out. I'm like, so was it true that we, had to check in with a veterinarian or something? He's like, yeah, there's a whole process. And I had to send him all of the paperwork, and we had to let him know ahead of time, and they confirmed that they got it. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's what I'm talking about, right? Instead of freaking out and telling yourself it's not going to work and we need to abandon our plan, you figure out the next obstacle and you keep moving forward, right? We didn't have that plan set in our plan. So the decision that we were going, come hell or high water, that plan comes after that. You have to feel motivated to have made that decision to figure out what comes next. Okay? The how reveals itself after you commit, not before. I promise, because you don't know what obstacles you will face, and that you would never go anywhere. You'd still be spinning around in that circle if you tried to figure that out. You just can't. You have to be willing to figure things out as you go. So I want you to ask this question to yourself about your relationship with alcohol. If you knew it would work, would you do it? Just sit with that question for a minute. If you knew it would work, that it would all work out in the end, that you would get there, would you do it? With absolute certainty that you can change your relationship with alcohol in the next 6 months, a year, 18 months, would you do it? Even if it cost you more than you expected, even if it took longer than you thought, even if you had to feel some uncomfortable feelings along the way, even if you had to do some hard work on yourselves and maybe have some uncomfortable conversations with your family and friends, if you knew it would work, would you do it? I think most of you are probably like, yeah, duh. You're nodding your head. Yes, of course, yes. So here's the real question. The only thing standing between you and a yes in real life, not pretend, but a real one, is the belief that it might not work for you. Not that it doesn't work. You've heard all the testimonials. Besides me, you've heard of other people changing their drinking, quitting drinking, right? You've listened to the podcast. You know it does work. You will probably have an unconscious belief it works for other people. You think that you're special. You might think that you're the only one that it might not work for. I might be too far gone. I'm too old. I'm too stuck. I'm too complicated. I've been through too much. I'm too different. It's too late. And I want to say this as directly as I can. That thought, those thoughts are not facts. They are sentences in your mind and beliefs that you carry. And the good news here is that they can be changed. That's literally the work that we do together. As I help you see those obstacles in your mind, which are your thoughts and beliefs, and we work on changing them. Because imagine if you believed that you could do it. Just like you have believed that you would have a family or the career or you would finish school or you would have that house. Right? Like it just wasn't even like, you wouldn't even second guessed it. Like, oh, I'm getting that. And then you go do it. And you knew it. Like it was done, good as done. I can help you work on that on the way. I already talked about the sort of the toddler scribble and the lines on the paper. So what happens is, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping around here, just stay with me. There's a lot that I want to cover in this podcast episode, okay? So when you guys decide that you want to change and maybe you commit to a program or, a dry July or dry January or something, you imagine unconsciously probably a straight line. You decide to drink less, you drink less, done. Easy peasy. But that's not what it looks like, as you know. So anything worth doing, anything that's going to last, just like learning a skill. I don't know what your careers are or what you've learned how to do in your past, but you literally learn things through trial and error. That's how you learn. That's what makes it worth it, right? So think about learning a new language. You have to make so many mistakes before it catches on. But those mistakes are valuable because that's literally how human beings learn. They try things, they fail, they learn from their mistakes, they make adjustments for next time. Okay? And anything worth having in the end, you have to be willing to go through that process. You just do. The mistakes that you might make are not signs that it's not working. And the hard days are not signs that you're failing. I promise you, the longer than expected timeline is not a sign that you should quit. Those things are the path. That is what change looks like from the inside. The women who transform their relationship with alcohol are not the ones who had a perfect straight line journey. I promise you, they're the ones who stayed in it through the toddler scribble and kept going. They did not give up. So the other part about this is these hard emotions, okay? I know I talk about feelings a lot. I love feelings. I would not have been able to do anything up until this point without being with my feelings. They're very, very powerful. They drive your behavior. Every action that you take is driven by how you feel. Want to feel or don't want to feel. And so learning how to be with those feelings is probably the most important skill you will ever have in your life. And I would put money on that. 100%. So grief and changing your relationship with alcohol is real because there's a part of you that is changing and evolving. It's like the butterfly, right? It starts out as caterpillar. The caterpillar makes a cocoon and then it turns into mush and disintegrates. And then it becomes a butterfly. Imagine how painful that might be. So your own transformation, your own metamorphosis in anything worthwhile, any big goal is going to be worth it. And there's going to be a grief component that we don't talk about enough. So just like leaving Chapel Hill hurt me deeply, generally hurt, and it still does. My friends are sending me messages and they're so proud of me. Like, it's so hard. And it's going to be. And I'm just still in La La Land over here. Like, this is still like a vacation feeling. Like we moved here in the summer. My kids haven't started school yet. Like, there's a whole wave of difficult obstacles to come. I'm going to get homesick. I'm going to want the ease of living in America where I grew up and all the systems that I know. And I don't have to think about things so much. I know that that's coming. So changing your relationship with alcohol has a grief component to it. And you might grieve that version of yourself who drank, the social identity, the ritual of the glass of the wine at the end of the day. You might be grieving loss of connection not real connection, but an idea of connection, this concept of connection that you might have with your partner or your friends, or the way alcohol helped you celebrate and helped you transition and having bad days. Even though intellectually you know you want to change, there can still be so much grief in letting it go, because it did support you. Even though it wasn't a healthy support, it did help you through those difficult times sometimes, and it helped with the good times. So when you don't have your little wubby, it's hard. And I'm not trying to downplay it. It was there for you. You used it as a tool. So now you don't have your tool, right? Like, there's grief associated with that. Grief, it's that feeling, that sitting with it and processing it instead of numbing it. That's going to be a part of your work. And that's how you know you're doing it right. You know, like, if you're not feeling that, some sort of sense of loss, we're probably not going where we need to be going. Or you're probably still choosing to drink in those situations. So, wrapping this up, thank you for staying with me. I'm sitting here at the Magic House in Lisbon. Might start crying again. My first morning, almost a resident of Portugal, drinking my coffee, feeling something that is so complex. It's so wild to me that I'm here, even though I've been very present and fully aware through this whole journey. I've done the hard thing. We've done the hard thing. And it's 100% worth it. 100% worth it, even while I'm feeling the grief. Even while I reflect on all the money I spent and the time and living in a townhome that I didn't love and selling my awesome car a year too soon and, right? All of it was worth it. I expanded. I grew. My husband and I got more connected. My kids and I got more connected. I was able to deepen my friendships even more in Chapel Hill because I had a whole bonus year, is what they're calling it, with them. So I was even more present and more connected, and we had so much fun. And I wouldn't have had any of that and been challenged that way had I not gone through the process that I did. So I want to ask you one more time. Where do you want to be in 6 months, in a year, or 18 months? Not how are you going to get there? Not what's the plan? Just where do you want to be with your alcohol? Decide that first. Believe that you can get there. And the path from that knowing that you are going to get there no matter what will help you make the next best decision. It always does. It will help you get through every single obstacle that you face on us every single day. So, if you're ready to decide and you want my help, you have another 5 days to join the transformation program, which includes an in-person retreat right here at the Magic House in December. I have 1 spot left. Our first call is July 6th. The calls are Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can go to angelomascenik.com/transformation program and apply there. And wherever you are this morning, this afternoon, good evening, this evening, it's a good day to decide and then go after it, my friends. All right, I'll see you next week.